The emergency evacuation of the Vrax delegation left Earth's officials in stunned silence. Maintenance drones scrubbed purplish fluid from the conference chamber, while Admiral Chen replayed the footage, watching the alien diplomat's membranes vibrate violently before rupturing. Could it have been a pathogen? Asked Dr. Rice, the chief xenobiologist. Some bacteria that affects their biology. No, Chen replied, tapping the audio waveform displayed on her tablet. Look at the correlation between my speech pattern and their physiological response. It was my voice. My words physically harmed them. Outside the quarantine station, Earth celebrated. News feeds buzzed with excitement about the crystalline technologies abandoned by the fleeing Vrax. Corporations were already reverse engineering the translucent data crystals and lightweight metamaterials. Global markets surged on speculations about interstellar trade opportunities. Only a handful of officials understood the gravity of what had transpired. We've analyzed the Vrax vessel's retreat trajectory, Lieutenant Park reported, pulling up a holographic star chart. They're maintaining communication silence, but their course suggests they're heading toward this region, approximately 47 light-years away. Chen frowned. That's where the Vrax Confederation homeworlds would be, based on the star maps they shared during the initial communication phase. In her private quarters that evening, Chen studied the final moments before the diplomatic disaster. She focused on one Vrax representative, a tall, willowy being with feathery appendages who had seemed genuinely interested in human culture before collapsing. The translator had been working on deciphering its final transmission. They attack with their breathing holes. Computer, filter background noise, and enhance audio frequencies below human hearing range, Chen commanded. The system complied, revealing the subtle undertone of vibrations. The Vrax hadn't just been speaking. They had been screaming. 3 days later, Dr. Eliza Wright made the breakthrough. Her team had been analyzing the abandoned Vrax communication devices in a soundproof laboratory. "Admiral, you need to see this," Wright said, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. "We've decoded part of their communication protocols. The Vrax don't just use sound differently than we do. They perceive it differently at a fundamental level." The holographic display showed comparative neural maps, human and Vrax. Their auditory processing centers are integrated with their pain receptors, Wright explained. What we perceive as ordinary conversation registers to them as something akin to a physical assault. It's not just loud sounds. It's the complex vibrational patterns in human speech that their nervous systems interpret as a deliberate attack. Chen stared at the simulation showing how sound waves from human vocal cords would propagate through Vrax neural tissue. "So when I welcomed them, you might as well have been firing a weapon, from their perspective," Wright confirmed. Their evolutionary history suggests they developed on worlds with minimal atmospheric disturbance. Sound, as we understand it, is associated only with catastrophic events in their experience, volcanic eruptions, tectonic shifts. "And we just shouted in their faces," Chen said quietly. The implications became clearer when they accessed more of the Vrax database. 3 entries described past encounters with sonic aggressive species and the subsequent containment protocols enacted by the Confederation. The final translated record chilled Chen to her core. As with all sonic weapons races, isolation must be immediate and absolute. The Harmonious Council has authorized preemptive sterilization if necessary. As she gazed through the observation window at Earth, blue, vibrant, and blissfully unaware, Admiral Chen realized humanity's first step into the galactic community had been interpreted as a declaration of war. The lone survivor of the UNS Gagarin didn't make it back to Earth. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Oko's escape pod, damaged during the Vrax ambush, could only transmit her final message before life support failed. They detonated something, not an explosive. It was a sonic nullifier. Everyone who tried to speak started hemorrhaging from their vocal cords. Her voice grew hoarser with each word. They kept repeating one phrase in our own language. "Silence is mercy." The recording became Earth's wake-up call. Within 72 hours, The United Earth Defense Council enacted Emergency Protocol Whisper. Civilian broadcasts were restricted to text-only transmissions. Military operations switched to light-based communication systems. Children practiced silent evacuation drills in schools worldwide. Dr. Wright's team worked frantically to integrate the recovered VRAX technology into Earth's defensive systems. They've developed shields specifically designed to dampen sound waves, she explained during a silent briefing, her words appearing on each council member's tablet. We can adapt these to protect our major population centers, but the technology requires rare materials we barely understand. Admiral Chen authorized Project Echo, a desperate plan to establish underground acoustic bunkers where humanity's voice would be preserved if the worst happened. Meanwhile, isolated deep in the Kuiper Belt Research Station, Dr. Kwame Osei made a discovery that challenged everything they thought they knew about the VRAX. They're not naturally silent. He's signed to his research partner, Dr. Yuki Tanaka. They had spent weeks analyzing VRAX biological samples left behind during first contact. Look at these vestigial structures. They once had vocal apparatus similar to Earth cetaceans. Tanaka's eyes widened. You think they evolved away from vocal communication? Or were forced to, Osei replied. These neural patterns suggest intentional modification over generations, not natural evolution. Their discovery never reached Earth. The research station's transmission was intercepted by a VRAX stealth vessel. The subsequent attack left no survivors, but the station's emergency protocols managed to encrypt and broadcast a single data packet before destruction. When the packet finally reached the Defense Council 3 days later, it contained only a partial message from Osei. Not natural enemies, victims of their own. The rest was corrupted. On Earth, panic grew as deep space monitoring stations detected a massive surge of quantum signatures at the edge of the solar system, evidence of numerous ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. The VRAX invasion force had arrived 2 weeks ahead of intelligence estimates. War Commander Zextel's fleet deployed in a precise geometric pattern optimized for signal clarity. The primary flagship, Harmonious Silence, positioned itself just beyond Luna's orbit, close enough for Earth to witness its imposing crystalline structure refracting sunlight into mesmerizing patterns, yet far enough to remain beyond conventional weapons range. The first VRAX transmission arrived simultaneously on every electronic device on Earth, a perfect demonstration of their technological supremacy. Humanity, the text read, accompanied by mathematical equations demonstrating sound wave propagation through tissue. Your species represents an unacceptable biological hazard to galactic harmony. We offer a single option for coexistence: surrender for immediate vocal neutralization procedure. All human vocal cords will be surgically modified to prevent sound production beyond 20 decibels. Compliance ensures your species' survival. Resistance guarantees extinction. They provided a 24-hour window for Earth's response. In the Pentagon's soundproof war room, Chen studied tactical projections showing the overwhelming VRAX military advantage. Humanity's most advanced weapons systems couldn't penetrate their defensive technology. We need an edge they haven't anticipated, she typed to the assembled military leadership. That's when she received a classified file from a black-budget research division she hadn't known existed. The file contained a single line: Project Soprano requires immediate authorization. Attached was a video of Captain Mai Lai demonstrating how a precise operatic high C could shatter a recovered piece of VRAX technology. Captain Mai Lai hadn't expected her classified research to become humanity's last hope. 3 years ago, her career had nearly ended after a controversial tactical decision during the Venezuelan crisis. Reassignment to the Xenobiology Audio Research Division was meant to be a career dead end. Your thesis on sound wave manipulation was decades ahead of its time, Admiral Chen told her as they descended into the XARD bunker, 2 kilometers beneath the Rockies. Now we need results in 18 hours. The bunker's central chamber had been transformed into a makeshift laboratory. Equipment salvaged from a dozen research facilities worldwide cluttered the space. acoustic analyzers, neural mapping interfaces, and modified VRAX technology surrounded a reinforced testing chamber. Leigh's team had been assembled through desperate global search protocols. Each member brought unique vocal capabilities that conventional military thinking had never considered valuable until now. Sergeant Williams can reproduce any sound after hearing it once, Leigh explained, gesturing to a tall man calibrating audio equipment. His perfect pitch allows precise replication of frequencies that would normally require computational modeling. And him? Chen nodded toward a muscular man in his 20s attaching sensors to his throat. Travis Rodriguez. Before the war, he was a competitive beatboxer who could produce sub-bass frequencies low enough to trigger seismographs. Leigh lowered her voice. He accidentally killed a VRAX scout by asking directions. His subharmonics caused neural hemorrhaging before either realized what was happening. Dr. Nkechi Okafor, a Nigerian linguist with unique vocal cord physiology, was analyzing VRAX neural tissue through an isolation chamber. Their neural system reacts differently to specific harmonic combinations, she reported. It's not just volume. It's the complex wave patterns created by human speech. The team had experienced early setbacks. Their first breakthrough, utilizing overtone singing to disrupt VRAX communication systems, had nearly killed Williams when the feedback loop caused a laboratory accident. The second test using amplified whispers had melted their prototype emitter. Everything changed when they recovered the body of a VRAX scout from a downed reconnaissance craft. The autopsy revealed neural pathways catastrophically rearranged by exposure to a human child singing a nursery rhyme. It's not random, Leigh realized, studying the neural scans. The damage pattern shows their pain receptors activate in sequence, following the melodic line exactly. With time running out, the team made a desperate gamble. They combined their vocal specialties into layered harmonic patterns specifically targeted at VRAX neurophysiology. Rodriguez created a foundation of sub-bass frequencies that matched the resonance pattern of VRAX crystalline technology. Williams added precisely calibrated mid-range tones that interfered with their neural communication systems. Okafor contributed complex multilayered vocals that disrupted their cognitive processing. But it was Leigh's soprano overtones that completed the weapon, creating a harmonic cascade that could potentially shatter VRAX neural networks. It's ready, Leigh announced, 12 hours before the VRAX deadline. But there's a problem. She displayed the targeting simulations on the main screen. The effect dissipates over distance. To be effective, we need to broadcast from at least 6 strategic locations simultaneously. And even then, we can't reach their main fleet. What if they come to us? Chen asked. Leigh looked confused. They're maintaining orbital position beyond our weapon system's range. Because they believe our weapons are conventional, Chen replied. What if we surrender? Understanding dawned on Leigh's face. You want to invite them in, she whispered. Let them think they've won. Chen nodded grimly. How close do they need to be for maximum effect? Low Earth orbit would be optimal, Leigh said. But Admiral, this is still experimental. We've never tested it at full scale. Neither have they, Chen replied, activating her secure communication device. And their fatal mistake is assuming our voices are just a biological accident, not a weapon we've spent millennia perfecting. As Earth prepared its apparent surrender, 12 opera singers from around the world were quietly transported to the 6 broadcast stations. The VRAX, monitoring all communications, detected nothing but resignation and defeat in Earth's text-only responses. They never suspected that humanity's final broadcast would be anything but a plea for mercy. The VRAX command vessel Harmonious Silence descended through Earth's atmosphere with methodical precision, its crystalline hull refracting sunlight into kaleidoscopic patterns. Flanking it were 6 medical frigates, each carrying thousands of vocal nullification surgical units. War Commander Zexel observed Earth's major cities through sensory inputs that translated visual data into subtle electromagnetic patterns his species could interpret. His crew maintained perfect operational silence as they prepared to begin the systematic processing of humanity. The humans request a final global broadcast before implementation of silence protocols. His communications officer reported through a light pattern interface. Their leadership wishes to provide instructions to their population regarding the procedure. Zextal approved the request with a dismissive gesture. Magnanimous victory required certain courtesies, and allowing the primitives a final vocalization seemed an appropriate concession. His psychologists assured him the broadcast would consist primarily of emotional reassurances and surrender terms, behavior typical of species facing evolutionary correction. As the Vrax ships positioned themselves in precise formation over 6 major population centers, Earth's defense systems remained conspicuously inactive. Global communication networks synchronized to broadcast humanity's apparent capitulation. In the Madrid Broadcast Center, renowned soprano Isabella Rossi adjusted her earpiece as technicians counted down. Similar scenes unfolded in Beijing, Cairo, New York, Sydney, and Rio de Janeiro, where the world's most accomplished vocal performers prepared to execute the most important performance of their lives, and possibly the last. Remember, Captain Lai reminded them through a secure text channel, absolute synchronization is essential. The harmonic overlay creates the neural disruption pattern. Precision, not volume, will determine our success. When the global broadcast began, the Vrax initially registered confusion. Instead of desperate pleas or formal surrender protocols, their sensors detected a complex pattern of modulated sound waves building in intensity. War Commander Zextal felt the first neural vibrations as the opening notes of Mozart's Queen of the Night aria reached his flagship. The effect began subtly, minor neural discomfort that his officers dismissed as atmospheric interference. By the time the first crescendo hit, emergency alarms activated throughout the Vrax fleet. The precisely modified frequencies targeted specific Vrax neural pathways, creating cascading disruptions that their biological systems couldn't filter. Inside the harmonious silence, chaos erupted. Crystalline control interfaces shattered as the harmonized voices reached frequencies that matched their resonance patterns. Navigation officers convulsed as their neural implants overloaded. Zextal watched in horror as his flagship's biosynthetic systems began to rupture, translucent fluid spilling across command deck surfaces. Terminate broadcast source, he commanded, but his communication systems had already failed. Through emergency sensory inputs, he detected similar catastrophic failures across his fleet. On Earth, the performance continued with relentless precision. Isabella Rossi's voice reached notes that human ears could barely perceive, but which created devastating harmonic overlays when combined with the other singers' outputs. The Vrax medical frigates, with their sensitive biological components, suffered the most immediate damage, their hulls developing fracture patterns that spread like ice crystals across frozen ponds. Admiral Chen watched from the secure command center as tactical displays showed Vrax ships attempting emergency ascent maneuvers. Several smaller vessels collided in their panic to escape Earth's atmosphere. "They're running," a tactical officer reported with disbelief. "No," Chen replied grimly. "They're drowning." The Vrax had evolved in environments where sound barely existed. Human voices, refined through millennia of evolution, to express complex emotions, to soothe infants, to warn of danger, to coordinate hunts, to express love and rage and joy, struck them with the force of a natural disaster they had no biological framework to process. When the harmonious silence lost gravitational control and spiraled toward the lunar surface, Captain Lai ordered the broadcast terminated. 17 minutes of Mozart had accomplished what conventional weapons could not. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but the display screens tracking long-range Vrax fleet movements showed the horrifying truth. This was only the advance force. The main armada remained positioned at the edge of the solar system, now fully aware of humanity's sonic capabilities, and they would adapt. The lunar crash site of the harmonious silence presented unprecedented challenges. Earth's first extraterrestrial salvage operation required specially trained teams working in complete silence, wearing modified helmets that dampened even the sounds of their breathing. Lieutenant Dario Vega led Alpha Team through the fractured crystalline corridors. Structural integrity warnings flashed across his HUD as they navigated deeper into the vessel. His team communicated exclusively through hand signals and text interfaces projected onto their visors. Central chamber ahead, the team's xenotech specialist messaged, detecting power fluctuations consistent with containment systems. The chamber they entered bore little resemblance to human ship designs. Crystalline growths formed what appeared to be control interfaces. Damaged conduits leaked luminescent fluid that pulsed with faint bioluminescence. But it was the hexagonal containment unit at the chamber's center that captured their attention. Unlike the transparent materials comprising the rest of the ship, this pod was constructed from a dense, obsidian-like substance that absorbed light. Active status indicators suggested functional life support systems despite the crash. Possible Vrax survivor. Vega messaged to Mission Control, requesting protocol confirmation. The response came directly from Admiral Chen. Secure and extract. Priority Alpha. The extraction proved more complex than anticipated. The pod's interfaces rejected human interaction patterns until the xenotech specialist identified receptor nodes sensitive to specific light frequencies. Once synchronized with their equipment, the pod initiated an atmospheric equalization sequence. What emerged was unlike any Vrax they had encountered. The being, resembling a translucent manta ray with iridescent veins mapping its internal structure, floated rather than walked, manipulating air currents to maintain position. Its skin membranes undulated in complex patterns that their translation algorithms struggled to interpret. Back at Lunar Base Armstrong, a specialized containment habitat had been prepared based on Vrax atmospheric requirements. The being, which identified itself as Shift, surprised the human scientists by requesting audio communication capability. "You're not affected by sound?" Dr. Wright asked through the text interface. The alien's response appeared on their screens as the translation algorithms processed its membrane patterns. "My species, the Whisperers, evolved on the outer worlds of the Confederation. We communicate through air current manipulation, but developed rudimentary audio processing as an adaptation to frequent atmospheric disturbances." When granted limited audio communication, Shift revealed the truth that would transform humanity's understanding of the conflict. The Vrax were not always as you know them now. Millennia ago, they possessed vocal capabilities similar to your aquatic mammals. The alien projected a series of holographic images from a small device embedded in its membrane. Ancient Vrax historical records showing bipedal creatures with pronounced vocal organs. The Great Silencing occurred during their early space expansion. Shift continued. Their ancestors encountered a predatory species that hunted using sound, audio weapons that could rupture organs from great distances. The trauma was so severe that they engineered their own evolution, systematically modifying each generation to eliminate vocal capabilities while enhancing electromagnetic and chemical communication methods. Dr. Wright's team watched in stunned silence as the historical records showed generations of Vrax undergoing genetic modifications, their vocal structures gradually disappearing. The genetic memory of that trauma shapes their entire civilization, Shift explained. When they encountered your species, they didn't just see a threat. They confronted their deepest ancestral nightmare. Admiral Chen, observing via SecureLink, asked the question foremost in everyone's mind. "Why are you telling us this? You're betraying your own confederation." The aliens' membranes pulsed with patterns that the translation system interpreted as emotional indicators of sorrow. Because the Vrax Imperium has forgotten the difference between protection and oppression. Dozens of worlds harbor billions of beings forced into silence, species with natural vocal capabilities modified against their will or kept as second-class citizens. When I accessed your cultural archives and experienced the full spectrum of human music, The translation briefly faltered as Shift's membranes produced patterns without direct linguistic equivalents. When the system recovered, the final words appeared. Your voices would bring freedom to the silenced. That night, as Earth prepared for the coming conflict, Admiral Chen authorized unrestricted access to human musical archives for their unexpected ally. Security footage captured the remarkable sight of Shift suspended in its habitat, membrane structures undulating in perfect synchronization with Bach's cello suite No. 1. The Vrax Grand Armada materialized at the edge of the solar system in a dazzling display of quantum displacement. Over 3,000 warships arranged themselves in a three-dimensional geometric pattern that Captain Lai immediately recognized as an acoustic dampening formation. They've adapted, she noted, studying the tactical display in the newly commissioned UAS Paganini. That formation is designed to disperse sound waves. Earth's hastily assembled defense force seemed pitifully small in comparison. 57 vocal vessels constructed by retrofitting existing spacecraft with acoustic projection chambers and harmonic amplifiers. Each ship carried specialized vocal combatants trained in the techniques developed by Lai's team. Admiral Chen's voice came through the secure channel. The Vrax are transmitting. The message appeared on all command displays. Your acoustic assault was anticipated and countered. Surrender now, and we will permit your species to exist without vocal capacity. Resist, and your extinction is assured. To emphasize their point, the lead Vrax dreadnought fired a demonstration shot that vaporized a research outpost on Pluto's moon Charon. Chen's response was not what anyone expected. All vessels. Execute Operation Thundervoice. Authorization Gamma 7 Echo. The human fleet split into 5 tactical groups, each targeting different sections of the Vrax formation. Li's vessel led Alpha Group toward what appeared to be the Vrax command and control section. They're expecting another Mozart maneuver, Li told her team as they entered their acoustic chamber. But this time, we're not using classical music. Travis Rodriguez adjusted his specialized resonance amplifier. What's the attack pattern, Captain? Li displayed the waveform on the main screen. Maori Haka war chants for initial disruption. Tuvan throats singing to penetrate their dampening fields. Bass drops to destabilize their crystalline structures. And for the final, she smiled grimly, we're bringing in the children. The Vrax detected the human fleet's approach and adjusted their formation to create optimal defensive coverage. What they couldn't predict was how humanity had modified their attack patterns based on Shift's intelligence. As the first engagement began, Rodriguez led his team in producing sub-bass frequencies specifically calibrated to the resonance frequency of Vrax navigation crystals. The effect wasn't immediately visible, but sensors detected microscopic fractures developing in the enemy vessel's control systems. Dr. Okafer's linguistic team followed with a coordinated sequence of Maori war chants, their polyphonic structure creating unpredictable harmonics that penetrated the Vrax dampening fields. On 3 Vrax destroyers, targeting systems suddenly locked onto friendly vessels. A Vrax battle group broke formation to intercept Alpha Group, firing energy weapons that scorched the hull of the Paganini. Li's ship shuddered under the impact. Shields at 62%, the tactical officer reported. We can't take another direct hit. Li activated the ship-wide communication. All vocal combatants, prepare for synchronized attack. Execute Great Chorus on my mark. Across the human fleet, 10,000 voices prepared for a coordinated assault unlike anything attempted before. Each ship had been assigned specific harmonic patterns designed to layer into a devastating sonic weapon. The Paganini rotated to bring its primary acoustic projectors to bear on the approaching Vrax vessels. Now, Li commanded. What followed was described later as the song that shattered space. The great chorus began with a foundation of bass tones that created standing wave patterns between vessels. Mid-range voices added complex harmonic structures that targeted specific Vrax neural frequencies. Soprano tones provided the attack edge that penetrated defensive systems. The effect rippled through the Vrax fleet like a sonic tsunami. Ship after ship reported system failures as crystalline components shattered under the precise harmonic assault. The Vrax formation began to fragment as damaged vessels lost navigational control. When a Vrax super-dreadnought attempted to push through toward Earth, the human commanders deployed their secret weapon. The UNS Lullaby, positioned at the rear of the formation, activated its special acoustic chamber where 30 children from Earth's most prestigious choirs performed a weaponized version of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. The effect was catastrophic. The Super Dreadnought's command deck exploded in a brilliant flash as the pure, innocent tones created harmonic patterns that the Vrax had no defense against. As the battle turned decisively in humanity's favor, damaged Vrax communication buoys transmitted the conflict throughout Confederation space. On 3 subjugated worlds, the native species monitored these transmissions and heard, for the first time in generations, the power of unrestrained vocal expression. The first seeds of rebellion had been planted. The UNS Pavarotti emerged from quantum transition in orbit around Kizith, its sleek hull bearing scorch marks from the Kuiper Belt engagement. Earth's first vocal dreadnought, 3 times larger than any previous vocal vessel, carried a complement of over 500 specialized sonic combatants and the most advanced acoustic projection systems ever constructed. Planetary scans complete, announced Lieutenant Park, detecting approximately 2.3 billion life forms with Vrax control architecture throughout major population centers. Admiral Chen nodded grimly. And the suppression grid. Orbital components consist of 7 satellites generating a dampening field that prevents vocal vibrations above 15 decibels, Park replied. Ground-based amplifiers are located in these 12 regions. The holographic display highlighted structures resembling massive acoustic dishes across the planet's surface. For 3 centuries, these devices had maintained silent dominance over Kizith's native avian species. The liberation of Kizith would be humanity's most complex special operation, requiring synchronized attacks on multiple targets while avoiding civilian casualties. Complicating matters further, the orbital defenders included a Vrax battle group commanded by War Master X Trill, a veteran of the Kuiper Belt conflict who had studied human tactics. Dr. Okafor's team had spent weeks developing liberation broadcasts, specialized vocal sequences specifically designed to disable Vrax control systems while minimizing harm to Kizith physiology. The Vrax have implemented neural implants in the native population, she explained during the final briefing. These devices activate pain receptors if vocal cords vibrate beyond specified parameters. Our broadcasting pattern must disable these implants without causing further trauma. The operation began with 12 stealth shuttles departing the Pavarotti, each carrying the specialized infiltration team led by Whisperer allies. Using technology derived from Shift's communication devices, they approached the planetary surface undetected by Vrax sensors. Meanwhile, the human fleet engaged the orbital defenders in a conventional battle to draw attention from the infiltration teams. The Vrax commander, anticipating another sonic assault, maintained tight formation behind acoustic dampening shields. They've learned, Captain Lai observed from the Pavarotti's command deck. Their formation is specifically designed to resist harmonic penetration. Admiral Chen's expression remained neutral. Then it's fortunate we're not planning to sing to them. Yet. On the surface, infiltration teams reached their targets simultaneously. 12 massive amplifier stations that formed the backbone of the planetary suppression grid. Whisperer technicians interfaced with Vrax systems using the air current patterns that the Confederation's technology was designed to recognize. Synchronization complete, reported Team Leader Reyes from Ground Station 7. Ready to execute Phase 2. Admiral Chen gave the command that would change Kizith forever. Begin the symphony. The liberation broadcast began with a single sound, a human child singing the simple lullaby. The frequency, carefully calibrated to the specific vulnerabilities in Vrax suppression technology, propagated through the compromised amplifier network. Across Kizith, millions of vocal suppression implants simultaneously deactivated. The effect wasn't immediately apparent. 3 centuries of conditioning had taught the native population that vocalization meant pain. Then, from a mountain peak near the planetary capital, a single Kizith rose into the air, its iridescent wings catching the light of the binary suns. For the first time in generations, it opened its beak and produced a clear, piercing note that carried across the valley. One by one, other Kizith joined the call. The sound swelled as ancient genetic memory awakened, complex harmonies that once carried across vast canyons, calling mates and warning of dangers, celebrating life and mourning death. The Vrax communication network rapidly overloaded with distress signals as control centers lost contact with implanted citizens. War Master X Trill, recognizing the catastrophic collapse of planetary control, ordered his ships to bombard the surface, only to discover his weapons systems locked by harmonic interference patterns created by the native Kizith songs. The Symphony of Liberation had achieved in hours what conventional warfare could not have accomplished in years. As the Kizith reclaimed their voices, they also reclaimed their world, their natural harmonics creating patterns that disabled remaining Vrax technology through frequencies unique to their evolutionary history. But victory came at a cost. The Pavarotti was ambushed by Vrax reinforcements that materialized from quantum space without warning. 3 human vessels were destroyed before the attack was repelled, and Captain Lee's shuttle, returning from coordinating the ground operation, was captured by a Vrax stealth vessel. The footage of her capture, transmitted across Confederation space as a warning, showed her being dragged to a neural extraction chamber designed to study human vocal capabilities. Lee's final act before transmission terminated was to defiantly sing Earth's anthem, even as Vrax scientists prepared to dissect her vocal apparatus. The War Council aboard the UNS Harmony was divided. Earth's most advanced vocal dreadnought orbited the liberated world of Kizith as Admiral Chen presented the intelligence that had arrived via whisperer channels. The Vrax High Council has authorized deployment of Final Silence, a superweapon designed to create a resonance field that will permanently destroy vocal capabilities across an entire star system. Holographic projections displayed the weapon's specifications, a massive array of quantum oscillators that would generate a system-wide field of destructive harmonics targeted specifically at the neurological patterns that controlled vocalization in carbon-based life forms. If deployed against Earth, it would render all life incapable of producing sound permanently. The strategic options were equally unpalatable. A direct assault on the Vrax homeworld might prevent deployment but would cost millions of lives on both sides. Negotiating from a position of strength seemed impossible, while Captain Lai remained a high-value prisoner and the Final Silence remained operational. As the Council debated, an urgent transmission arrived from deep within Vrax territory, using encryption protocols that hadn't been compromised. The message contained 3 elements: footage of Captain Lai alive but clearly tortured, coordinates for a rendezvous point in neutral space, and a single phrase in multiple languages: the silent speak. 12 hours later, Admiral Chen's personal shuttle approached the coordinates, a debris field surrounding a destroyed listening post in unclaimed space. Her small security team remained on high alert as a Vrax diplomatic vessel decloaked less than a kilometer away. The being that emerged was neither Vrax nor Whisperer, but a representative of a species humanity had never encountered: tall, feathered bipeds with elongated necks supporting crested heads. "I am voice bearer Rikla," it communicated through a translation device. The unheard majority has seized control of 17 key worlds within Confederation space. The security team's sensors detected no weapons or hostile intent, but Chen remained cautious. The unheard majority. For millennia, the Vrax have maintained power through suppression of vocal species, Rikla explained. They comprise less than 8% of Confederation population, but control 94% of military assets. Until now, resistance was impossible. but your broadcasts changed everything. The revolution had begun with the battle footage from the Kuiper Belt engagement, but it had accelerated dramatically after recordings of the Kizith liberation spread through clandestine networks. Billions of beings living under vocal suppression had witnessed humanity's defiance and the joy of the liberated Kizith. Your Captain Lai has become a symbol, Orcs continued, producing a small holographic projector. The device activated to show Lai in a Vrax laboratory, surrounded by scientific equipment designed to study her vocal apparatus. Despite visible injuries, she was teaching her captors to sing, guiding them through simple scales as confused Vrax scientists observed the process. These recordings have spread throughout the Confederation, Royklot explained. Many younger Vrax, those generations removed from the original trauma, have begun questioning their society's foundations. Some have even attempted vocalization themselves. The most astonishing development was the revelation that a significant faction of Vrax moderates, led by those who had studied human culture, had joined the revolution. They call themselves the New Voice, Rikla said. They believe the time of silence has ended. 3 days later, as the Vocal Alliance fleet positioned to attack the Vrax homeworld, an unprecedented transmission was broadcast across all frequencies. Billions of beings throughout known space witnessed the broadcast from the Vrax High Council chamber, where revolutionaries had replaced the previous leadership. Captain Lai stood beside a Vrax representative as the new High Speaker addressed the Confederation. The era of enforced silence is over. We acknowledge the crimes committed against vocal species and seek a new harmony, one that embraces all forms of communication. The historic Peace Summit was held in a chamber specially designed by human and whisper architects to accommodate all communication forms. President Chen, promoted after the successful conclusion of hostilities, faced former enemies and new allies across a circular table that symbolized the new galactic order. Her speech, simultaneously translated into dozens of communication forms, became known as the Harmony Address. As she spoke, representatives from various species experienced vocal communication without pain, many hearing spoken words for the first time without suppression. What began as conflict has led to understanding, Chen said. We discovered that our greatest strength wasn't the capacity to harm with our voices, but the power to connect through them. The signing of the Harmonic Accords established a new interstellar framework based on communication diversity and mutual respect. The ceremony concluded with the first performance of the Galactic Corps, where Captain Lai, now appointed cultural ambassador, led human voices alongside newly vocal Vrax moderates, the melodious Kizith, and even traditional Vrax using adaptive technology to produce simple tones. The final movement featured a moment of complete silence, now a choice rather than a mandate, followed by a triumphant crescendo where thousands of voices, in patterns never before heard in the universe, celebrated the birth of a truly harmonic galactic community. As the applause faded, Ambassador Lai was approached by a young Vrax who had been among the first to attempt vocalization. Is it true? The Vrax asked in halting, carefully practiced words that clearly caused some discomfort, that humans use their voices not just for information, but to express what you call joy. Lai smiled and gestured to the celebration around them. Would you like me to teach you a song about exactly that?